So looking now at topic 3 in this specific factors that affect learning, looking at physical environmental factors. So again, like when we looked at things that affect performance, understanding the effect of environmental factors on skill learning performance, whether it's wetting, settings, equipment and facilities. So we can see that environmental means so many things. So the diagram below shows the environmental factors in groups. So we have physical and natural factors, so things like wind, rain, heat, terrain, so the land types of ground being used, rocky, hilly, the manufactured surfaces, so the equipment used, the facilities and the condition, the rules of the activity and the learning activities employed, and then the psychological factors, so anxiety, the goals, the coach, the personality type, the personality of learning, and all those environmental factors. So we've got to think about those sorts of things and how do they affect skills. So the link looked at 2 drop catches in the sport of cricket. So we'll go through, identify the aspect of the environment that affected the skill. So you could have sun in the player's eyes, so outside. You could also have things like wind, crowds in those elite sport. I explained the impact of the environmental factor had the response. So the sun glare prevents the player from seeing the ball, the cue, therefore cannot judge where the ball is going. Just like what we did the other day with the baseball, how hard it was to pick up that visual cue without initially seeing it. So having to pick it up out of an unknown. Describe the method in the first video clip of the English cricketer that was used to help complete the skill of catching. So the first player has his hands raised to block the sun out of his eyes to see the cue, the source. All right. So that, again, looking at that environmental factor. So what you need to do. All right. So for that environmental base, there's literally a paragraph on page 217 of the book. So we don't need to pause. You can read through that when you do the reading, the questions, but we're looking more at those environmental factors. So the points they look at is positive environment, variety, environments free of additional stimulus, competitive environment, and role models. So just a brief part there. Next bit we want to look at is characteristics of the learner. So the learners of all stages of development related to skill execution possess unique qualities that impact their ability to execute and learn skills. So things like their age, their gender, their fitness level, their cognitive capacity, the culture that they're from, the maturity. Even take into consideration things like maybe in an Asian culture, how much PE they have been exposed to, and so if they were then brought to Australia in year 8, what would their hand-eye coordination be in comparison? I remember having a girl from Sri Lanka come to school in year 9, and she hadn't done any PE before then, so her hand-eye coordination was significantly lower. Cultural reasons, are the women expected to do the learning? It's in Pakistan, in a Muslim environment, the men only do the sport. Fitness levels, people that are particularly unfit will not have the concentration to be able to continually execute skills. So all sorts of things like that take into consideration. So age, one key characteristic is the age of the learner, and we know that age relates to the stage of learning. So obviously if they're very young, they will be very cognitive with a lot of things they do. As we get older, we might have associative levels or sports that we've never done before, but we'd have a base skill level to be able to move through those stages more quickly. The physical and physiological differences are factors that impact on learning. So, things here that we can see, males have stronger muscle volume, females have smaller lungs, all those physiological things, they will impact on skill learning. Fitness, like I said before, the ability to execute skills under fatigue. So learners who are fitter will be able to stay task longer, and their concentration levels will be better. So they will be able to be more focused for longer periods, and therefore they'll have a greater consistency in skill execution. Cognitive capacity. To be able to reflect, learn, listen, interpret is important as anything to be able to then execute those skills properly or learn the skills properly. If you don't have the cognitive ability or the mental capacity, you really struggle to be able to pick up the finer details of the skill. And then when we bring tactics into it, of the game. I mentioned culture before. The ideologies, religion, that huge impacts on whether people can learn skills or not. The maturity level of the learner, how does that affect skill learning? More experience, you can also become better in relation to physical. You understand your physiological capabilities. More experienced learners can also focus on more complex information better. So the feedback that you might give to an A grade team compared to an under 12 team would obviously be different based on the experience that person has and the cognitive ability. All right. So now I need you to pause, go through and read pages 218 to 220, just what I've talked about, a couple of questions relating to those components. The next part is retention of learning. So the understanding of the process involved in retention of learning, short-term memory, understand the application of techniques to enhance learning, so chunking and visual association, and understand the relationships between learning and practice. So retention of learning, how is that information kept? How does the brain decide what's important? What method is used to remember information? So the brain processes a lot of the information at any given time. It tends to make choices of what's important and what isn't. So again, relating to stages of the learning, a cognitive learner would not be able to determine what's important and what's not, where an autonomous learner would. It's very organised and filtering information, unimportant information. It stores only what's needed, and in skill learning, the connection between the brain and the muscles is very important. So the skill learning connection between brain and muscles is important because we store information, then we retrieve information, and then we use information. So we might think we just run and kick the ball the way we've been taught, but the reason we do that is because our brain and our muscles work together to then get that muscle memory to be able to do that consistently, and then when we get to autonomous level, to be able to do that at our optimum level. So then we can see the process there. The information is received, the sensory information store, information that survives. The SIS process moves to the short-term memory store, and then the information is used through that short-term memory store through repetition or practice, moves into the long-term memory store. All right, so that's how we learn the skill. So the memory of important information can be helped by using chunking. So a popular method breaks down long, complex information into small bits. So doing lots of those individual skills, those parts of the skills to remember that. Visualization is very important. So using mental imagery and linking the memory to the information, the pictures, which provides association to the memory. Repetition and rhyming. So using words and rhyming that relates to that. So the visualization is important when we get to psychology of learning too. So memory and recall in sport. The diagram below shows information a cricket player needs to remember the shot illustrated. So there's lots of information that can be acted upon. Imagine the player had to do it every time. So I know, just for example, there might be certain things that I recall to be able to move my technique in one. So, make sure I'm gripping with that top hand. Make sure my foot is nice out towards the ball. Make sure my elbow is high. All right, so what this does is it slows the process down, a lot of information to handle at once. So remember the single channel hypothesis. What method could be used in helping the player commit all this information to memory? So rhyming is a good one. Explain how it could work. Using a phrase like step and hit to consolidate that information. Using triggers to trigger that movement with the technique is important. And then using that repetition. So what you're going to do, again, pause. Go to the book. Again, we've broken this section up. So pages 220 to 224, reading questions, been done in no time, ready for Friday. All right, the last one we need to look at is timing and anticipation. So understand that all the factors that affect skill learning. So the timing, subroutines, understand the nature of the anticipation, the factors that affect it. So what is timing? So timing is when all the components of this technique and the subroutine are successfully linked together and they flow smoothly. So all the actions in a technique are executed and done in the sequence that comes to a maximal execution point. So for example, in a tennis serve, the ball toss, the racket swing, the shift of weight, and then hitting the ball in the best position. So all those subroutines happen to be completed in a smooth sequence. Same with basketball, the dribble, making sure that timing, the steps, laying the ball up into the square to get the ball in the basket. So factors affecting timing, so physical factors. These factors relate to body movements and technique required by the skill, and the psychological factors. So the factors require mental preparation and the involvement of the execution of the skill. So psychological ones occur before the physiological ones. So for example, input always occurs before decision making and output. So we always get the stimulus, the decision making, then the output. So the faster the process of thinking, the better decisions and outcomes occur. So we can see there the time between the receiving the stimulus and the time taken to make the response. There's also a time delay in the process because of the processing demands how long it takes to make a decision on what to do. So the more information processed, the slower the reaction time. So a number of factors affect reaction time. So we talked about the number of stimulus that will affect and make the reaction time either more or less. The stimulus response compatibility. So the more natural response to the stimulus, the faster it will be. E.g., catching a ball on the right side with your right hand. The amount of practice and experience developed, that will all affect that reaction time. So if we look here, that anticipation is an educated guess on what's going to happen at any point in time in the game of performance. So we use and pick up and detect the practical cues, and we decide what we do. So it enables prediction of what will happen, reduces the time taken to respond to the stimulus, and that educated guess will develop with practice and experience. So there's the internal and external factors, and I gave the example of that experience as well within the game. So being able to pick up those small cues which can lead you to think they might be going to the right side of the body, they might be coming at you, the ball might be hitting at you, the ball might be full, short, the tennis serve might be going to your backhand or your forehand, all those sorts of things. So the positives and negatives of anticipation are there. Positive is the process of anticipation is completed successfully, is faster with a more successful outcome. And the negatives, incorrectly, the player will be committed to an action. So anticipating with a soccer goalkeeper. So if you show which way you're going to anticipate, the athlete might be able to then kick the ball the other way. So we can see them prevent someone from anticipating actions, be unpredictable, disguise your actions, and make responses random. So here's just a case study of Hicks' law and reaction time. So Hicks' law was developed by British psychologists to describe the time it takes for a person to make a decision as a result of a number of possible choices. So we can see their reaction time equals movement time, etc. So it's based around processing information. We talked about that, the number of responses to stimulus available against choice reaction time, and we've talked about that, the number of responses equals lower reaction time, and then 10 responses would cause the slowest reaction. We'll just nip through that. So we can see here just the last set of questions for topic 5. Timing anticipation on pages 225. So complete that and then we're done for topic 5. I would like to review that Friday, so make sure you've done the questions and watch both videos for that, and we're right up to date.